It's Wednesday, June 28th, 2023, your Day Weather Podcast, being brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. Thunderstorm activity, it's going to increase the coverage. So we're going to have more views like this from what Charlie sent of a big thunderstorm there in Converse County, Wyoming earlier this week. We're going to have more of this as moisture is going to increase ahead of a trough of low pressure that is in the northwest United States, back over Idaho. You know, a week ago, we had the exact same pattern. We had a hot, high-pressure pattern in the southern plains. We had low pressure and coolness in the northwest United States. It's the same pattern. Now, moisture will continue to deepen along and east of the divide while we continue to have very dry air on Colorado's western slope and areas west of the divide. So we still have that big contrast in air masses, and this is why we've had a lot of severe weather, one of the reasons. And I'm afraid to say with thunderstorm expanding north and south a bit more and also more to the east, we're going to have, unfortunately, severe weather, meaning large hail, heavy rain, strong winds, and tornado activity. It is going to be a concern, especially the next 3 days. I think the next 3 days, we're going to have to contend with severe weather east of the divide, out on the plains and along front range areas. West of the divide, the air is just too dry, at least at this point in time. We have another great shot. Jill sending this shot taken in the Table Mountain area west of Cheyenne. We showed you a lot of those pictures yesterday from the storm on Monday. And here's just a beautiful shot. Great shot of this thunderstorm that ended up producing a lot of damage in parts of Wyoming from a couple of tornado touchdowns, large hail, also some very large hail with that thunderstorm in portions of Nebraska and tornadoes in parts of Nebraska as well. Supercell thunderstorm, textbook example of that one right there. And we're going to see more of these, I'm afraid, over the next 3 days. Moisture continues to be with the low back here into Idaho. This wedge of dry air through Arizona and into central and eastern areas of Colorado will mitigate thunderstorms, at least along and west of this line here. This area is going to fill in with higher humidity air as the day wears on. But you can see the deeper moisture back across the northern Rockies and the northern plains. And the satellite imagery this morning shows last night's thunderstorm activity advancing eastward. So this is going to bring some much needed rain this morning to parts of the Corn Belt. And we're going to see these waves of thunderstorms heading into the Corn Belt over the next several days as they leave the Rockies and into the Plain States. They're going to get severe weather there, but they're also going to get badly needed rainfall. There's the low this morning in the Pacific Northwest, hanging back into southwest Idaho and eastern Oregon. So we have those strong southwest winds aloft. They continue to bake down here in the southern plains where that heat will continue through the weekend, but there's relief coming to this part of the country later. I'll show you that here in a minute. But this trough of low pressure will sit here for another day or two, then finally make tracks eastward. But with the pattern basically holding the same, we can see in the precipitable water forecast for, this is by 5 p.m. today, the precipitable water forecast is showing an axis of good moisture right here along the front range that'll get showers and thunderstorms going. You can see the deeper moisture back in the Pacific Northwest, then the very dry air here along and west of the divide. Again, you have this really sharp contrast. West of the front range to very dry air, very moist air here. And that is one reason why it's another factor in building severe weather when you have the contrast in air masses, not only with temperature, but the amount of water that's in the air. That contrast is a key factor. So this is where the thunderstorms are expected to develop by 6 p.m. this evening, about in the same areas of the last couple of days, but notice a more southern expansion down here into southeastern Colorado and southwest Kansas and across the northern plains. Now this area of thunderstorms here will march eastward into the overnight and morning hours of tomorrow, just like they've done over the last couple of days. So by tomorrow morning, there'll be an area of thunderstorms in the same area I just showed you as these come out of the Rockies. Notice, starting to see thunderstorms down in Mexico now. There's starting to be a tap of moisture coming up, and this will be a factor next week. We'll show you that here in a minute. So this is where the prospects for strong to severe thunderstorms will be today. And this area is very large, so along and east of the divide and on into the plains. So today there is some risk. Tomorrow, the moisture deepens. See the darker green there along and east of the divide? So tomorrow, the pattern is basically the same again with the low back here, The hot, high pressure here, the flow of moisture coming up from the east, and daytime heating. And then thunderstorm coverage Thursday and into Thursday night will be extensive and expanding a little bit more. Now notice it gets back into Utah, gets back into western and southwestern Wyoming along the I-80 corridor. So there'll be an expansion a little bit westward and eastward as this area right here overnight Thursday is likely going to see these thunderstorms grow and expand in this area here. There's going to be a lot of severe weather as we get into Thursday afternoon and Thursday night in that area I'm just showing you right there. Quite concerned about some big hail late Thursday and Thursday night in those locations. As we go into the severe weather risk, this is the area that I think what we're going to end up seeing. See this yellow area? I think this is likely going to expand and cover more areas right here as we get into late Thursday and Thursday night. So severe risk Thursday is high. Then for Friday, moisture remains very deep, essentially the same pattern. There you can see the thunderstorm coverage. There's a little bit of an eastward shift there, but nonetheless, we do see thunderstorm activity quite widespread again along and east of the divide especially. Drier air continues back, but the western slope of Colorado might start to see a little bit of thunderstorm activity by then, and that's because the trough is beginning to shift eastward, and there's your risk on Friday. And this is probably going to be expanded a little bit more to look like that as we get a little bit closer. So the next 3 days, be aware of that severe weather risk. This is what the precipitation looks like through Saturday morning. So you can see a concentration there in Nebraska, eastern Wyoming, eastern Colorado, western Kansas, parts of South Dakota, then into the Corn Belt. That's where the concentrated area of thunderstorms and severe weather is most likely going to be. See this right here? Starting to see signs of the desert monsoon season. Late start, but it is beginning to start. So there's going to be some moisture by early next week working its way up into there. So even though the low is going to shift east out into the plains, and there it is by Saturday morning, we still have this dome of heat down in the south, but we're going to see a migration westward of this high and consolidating more here, which in turn is going to help bring a flow of moisture up into the southwestern United States as we get into 4th of July week. And there it is. This is by the 4th of July Tuesday. Northwest winds aloft begin to move into this part of the country here. It's still going to be hot, but that's going to bring relief to the south. But with this high shifting to the west, that's going to bring some heat into Arizona, New Mexico, and into California. But the clockwise flow here is going to help draw moisture out of Mexico, and that's going to increase thunderstorm coverage. Over the next 5 days, you can see that in the central Rockies, temperatures are still going to lag, but there's heat building around it, and this heat right here is going to be migrating westward. So this means that the 4th of July week is likely going to see temperatures getting warmer. But this is the forecast for thunderstorm activity on the 4th of July. Needless to say, Mother Nature on the 4th of July going to be providing her own fireworks. And some of this is likely going to be strong. And then right here, look at all the thunderstorm in Mexico now getting up into Arizona, getting into New Mexico, and some of this moisture now is going to be drawn up like this. So next week is going to be a bit of a different pattern, but still producing thunderstorms. Have yourself a good Wednesday. We'll see you Thursday.